Happy day after Love Day.
Thursday.
Happy Thursday.
Yeah.
But it is the day after Valentine's Day.
Yes, it is. Is that a favorite holiday of yours?
It's so funny actually. We don't like, no, we don't. I'm not that big of a gooey person.
Yeah.
And our first Valentine's Day that Adriel and I were together, I actually wasn't in town because my best friend who lives in Sweden, her birthday's on the 16th of February. And I was like, I'm going to her birthday.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, first of all, you're new. I don't know you as long as I know her.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I love her. I'm going to her birthday. So I wasn't here on Valentine's Day, which till today, now Valentine's Day has become the day where I say, happy 2 days before Nushan's birthday day.
Like the real holiday here.
The real holiday. Also, I'm not as romantic as Adriel is. Adriel's a big romantic.
I can see this.
Yeah.
This.
Um, I think for me, like I got so used to I was single for like what, 10 years before I met Adriel. I got so used to Valentine's Day just being another day
Yeah.
that I don't really see it as anything special.
I know. I feel like it's so hard because I feel like being a therapist, you see the like other side, the impact of Valentine's Day as so, I feel like it's so negative for so many people
Yeah.
that I have this like resentment towards it as like a day that creates so much stress for people, both people in and out of relationships that I feel like I have like my own kind of stuff around it of like, you know, do we need another holiday that really kind of highlights loneliness? I don't know if we really need that. But yeah, I think it just magnifies it in so many ways. When I was working yesterday, obviously it came up and not because not usually in the joyous way, like it feels like it creates expectation and pressure for people in relationships and for people not in relationships. Just it's like, by the way, you're single. You enjoying that? And a lot of matches on Hinge.
This is the thing though, I will say, because it comes up, like one of my, it's so ironic because all of the sessions that landed on Valentine's Day were the sessions that like they came to me because of a breakup. So like, and of course, me being me, like the start of the session, I'm like, happy love day. And
Mm.
then like it would register like maybe not with this client. Maybe
Maybe
it's not.
maybe we call it something else.
Maybe we call it something else. But I think the way I kind of we talked about it yesterday in all of the sessions, and again, like I'm very cognitive behavioral therapy type of perception and perspective and therapy. So I'm like, you change your perception, you change your perspective, and it won't be as
Yeah.
ugh, right? So if you just kind of look at it as a day of it's about love. And it doesn't have to be about giving love to another person. It can be about giving love to yourself and just being loving as a human being. Um,
Yeah.
and that was the homework assignment I gave to everyone yesterday.
I love that. I feel like that's like the of like re kind of challenging and reframing the way you relate to the day
Yeah.
is such an important response to this kind of thing. I definitely had the approach of like it kind of for me Valentine's Day is kind of like the bad partner. You know, like when your client has a bad like partner or like kind of person in their life and you're like, "You know what? I don't think anyone dislikes that person more than your fucking therapist." Like, yeah. Like I'm like that's how I felt about it. I was like having some difficulty letting go yesterday of like the way that I was like, I don't want everyone to feel like shit today.
No, I know. Here's my question. When you were single during Valentine's Day, how did you handle it?
I feel like it just became another day. Like if it was like how in what way does it relate to me? If it doesn't relate to me, then I don't want it. I think there's like a little bit more, felt like a little bit more of a choosing of like, is this something that I want to care about? And of course, if I was in a state of like, emotions love themselves. So if I was feeling lonely,
Mm-hmm.
something that I would like to do is like really kind of make myself feel lonelier and worse.
Yeah.
And maybe like scroll social media, be like, look at every single couple. So I could definitely refire loneliness and sadness. Um, but mostly I think this is where like Parks and Rec, I really feel like came in and did a nice Galentine's Day or like whatever it is of being able to celebrate other things. So I think I really just it didn't carry a lot of weight. I think it never has in or out of a relationship for me. I just anything that like feels like kind of extra or like what I might consider like just like extra, yeah, I guess extra stress or like for superfluous like stress for people. I'm like, just kind of want to get rid of that one.
You know what's so funny? When I was single, I was very curious. There were a couple of holidays that I was like, I can't wait to see how this is gonna go. Like I cannot wait because there were certain, and Valentine's Day was really one of them because one thing's like
Yeah.
the first thing is obviously you like prepare yourself a couple of days before for it to just be another day.
Yeah.
You do know that like especially when you've been single or like you want to be with someone and that feeling of loneliness is just like wanting someone to be there, right? Like wanting a partner or wanting someone to cuddle with or wanting someone like it's this want of another connection. So like when you're seeing other people do all these cutesy things in your mind you're kind of like I want it. And then you like look around and you're like I don't have it, which that's the loneliness part,
Yeah.
the thought that I don't have it. But I will say, I don't think there was a year that went by that any of my, I don't necessarily want to say ex-boyfriends, because let's be honest, for 10 years I was single. They weren't actual boyfriends.
Yeah.
Mom, don't listen to this. Or family or whoever, don't judge me.
Okay.
But there was always a guy that I dated or attempted to date me or whatever would text me and be like, hey, how's your Valentine's Day? And it'd be like, oh Lord, you must be lonely if you are texting me. You must be, and I always was so curious to see who was the person that was going to text me on that Valentine's Day, or more probably send me a message via Facebook because they don't have my phone number in their phone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, that was one of the things. And then it would make me feel lonelier.
Well, yeah, I feel like it's interesting because loneliness comes in so many different forms, and definitely one of them, I think one of the like prompting events for loneliness is like connection being like around you or connection, someone reaching out to you and stuff, and when it's not who you want it to be. And so I think that really there's a specific kind of facet of loneliness that I think shows up with that or disappointment of like wanting things to be different than they are and wanting that person to be different than they are, or maybe just a different person altogether.
I think it's just a fantasy. A lot of things that I always tell clients, it's like it's the fantasy, especially when people break up with someone and they can't let that breakup go. And more often that breakup is like there was a reason
Yeah.
that breakup happened. I always say it's the fantasy. It's two things. One, it's the fantasy of what that person can be and what
Mm.
you want them to be. And then the second thing is actually connected to you is like one of the things that one of my clients was like, I want them to do better for me. And I'm like, okay, that right there, you want them to do better for you. Why do you need that?
Hmm.
Like you are needing that external person to say you are worthy or they're going to change for you or whatever the cognitive distortion that when you think about it is like, I'm not worthy unless this person changes their whole existence for me. Which obviously ties to like deeper, deeper, deeper shit. But every single time I'm like, take a look at that. And that's actually the moment where when you feel that loneliness and you feel that want and you feel that you need that, take a look at it and ask yourself, how can you give it to yourself?
Yeah.
Because you're in a pattern of relationship where you're trying to feed something unhealthy in you via that relationship, then the patterns of that relationship aren't necessarily the healthiest patterns.
Actually, this is really bringing me back to a time when I came to you for some love advice about 10 years ago when I wasn't getting a text back and I was definitely, yeah, I was definitely being ghosted. And I remember being like, coming to you just about like what it meant about me and
Mm,
what I could do to like change the outcome of being ghosted by someone I had been seeing for like a year, which is really special. Um,
that was
and
that was a special relationship.
yeah. Yes, 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 it was. And I remember you saying something similar to me at the time. And it was interesting because what I wanted to hear at the moment was if you send the right text, you will get the outcome you want. But the
Mhm.
reality is that there's no text that's going to change the way I feel about myself. And
Yeah.
I can't change this person. And so instead of trying to create an outcome or to like pretend or, you know, kind of fake it with me, you were like, what about you? Like, and really kind of shifted that focus back to me. And I remember being like, oh, fuck, I don't want to do that. I wanted to do the other thing. I wanted to do the ineffective thing and just keep, and just be in denial and non-acceptance. And you were like, yeah, I think, why do you need that? And it's because I didn't want to let it go.
Yeah.
Because if this didn't work out, it meant that I would have to start over. And
Mhm.
so for me, it's interesting, like thinking about not so much worth, but I think around like feeling like wasted time as well. Like I think it can definitely be a self-worth thing. And I know for me it was like I don't want to have to do this all again because dating is so hard and I think for some people it's easier than others. Like I don't really know that many people who are like dating is super fun and awesome and I really enjoyed all of it.
Mhm.
I think for me it was more like wow, this is a means to an end and I'd like the end now. Thank you. So it's yeah, interesting hearing you talk about that. I just had this like visceral response. I remember sitting in that restaurant in Santa Monica Bodega and showing you these text messages and having you being like, yeah, and just kind of pivoting it completely.
And it's funny because the irony is around that time. I don't know if you I was and this is one of my things that you've always commented on is like I've never called them dating, I've called being friends with. Like every time I remember when you and Charles came from New York and we were at dinner once, and you turned around, you're like, who are you friends with now? And Charles is like, what does that mean? You're like, she doesn't date people, she just friend zones everybody.
Yeah.
That was my thing. So at the time, who I was friends with, and it was funny because I was sitting there like, you do realize I have to take my own advice on this. Like I am sitting here, although he's not necessarily ghosting me, but like it is
Hmm.
one of those that go away and come back and go away and come back.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other thing. It's funny because one part of dating is dealing with all the people that trigger the biggest insecurities in you.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that's the thing where so many people just one of the things that I would always give advice to anyone is let yourself date all the people that you would like you're going for, and let those insecurities come out. Let them be gone and let yourself sit with every single one of those insecurities, because when you're done and you're kind of at this state of like, okay, like I know like what type of person I want. I know what's going to be good for me. I know all of the things, and now I'm just going to live my life and wait for that person to show up. Then you'll have the best relationship.
Yeah.
And loneliness is part of it.
Yeah, it's just this really uncomfortable feeling when we're in a world where there are so many uncomfortable feelings that we face every day. It really sometimes tips people over the edge.
Yeah. Yeah, and it does make it so much more lonely when you're dealing with the insecurities by yourself too.
Yes. Yeah.
Like that's the piece that loneliness ignites the hardest thoughts, because you're sitting there and you're like, there's so many times, Lauren, I can remember sitting in my own apartment, sitting there being like, I just wish I could deal with like this life problem with just someone that could, like, I wish I wasn't dealing with it alone.
Hmm.
And then every single time I had to like take that deep breath and sit in my sadness and just kind of allow it to be and just be like, you know what? But you can deal with it alone. And it's okay. Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
Everything is exactly as it should be. You know, like, and so like one of the things that I always tell my clients or even my friends, like also I'm at an age where some of my friends have actually gone divorced.
Yeah.
So like that's also a different phase of loneliness of its own, because you thought you found love and it wasn't, and it was love. It's just you're no longer happy. Both people are no longer happy. So that also is like a different phase of like
Yeah.
loneliness and hopelessness. And I think the thing that I always say is like, it's the cheesiest thing, but it really is true. When you go through the darkness of the emotion, you'll come out exactly where you need to be. You're not going to know where that is.
And it's so hard to be in the at the start of the emotion and to get through it. And so it's hard to see the other side sometimes. And to also know like, one of the things that I think used to bring me a lot of relief when I was single was like kind of knowing the like stats on people who want to get married end up mostly end up getting married. And
Mm.
like if people want it, and I think of being able to access it, and it's hard in those moments, like when the loneliness is really intense, to tell yourself that the feelings are likely temporary.
Yeah.
And it's something that coming from somebody who's in a relationship feels incredibly invalidating.
Mm.
That's something I always remember. And it's like when anytime someone would try to tell me like something about what the future may hold, I used to hate it.
Yeah.
And it's something that I think knowing yourself, only if you believe it yourself, that I think it can really hit the spot like you're talking about.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing. When I was single, everyone would be like, "It's gonna happen for you. It's for sure gonna happen for you." And it's funny because, like, with with my multiple communities, like the Armenian community would always be like, "A nice Armenian boy, like a really nice and rich and wealthy from a really good family, Armenian boy is gonna come your way." And every single time in my mind, I'd be like, I would never marry an Armenian. I'm sorry, no offense to any Armenian man or person out there, not my thing. And then like my Persian side would be like a nice, rich, and of course we're Middle Eastern, so rich has to be a part of the wishing. Like a nice, rich, handsome Persian man from a Persian good family is gonna come your way, and I'd be like, I can't do the Middle Eastern mentality, man. I really can't do that. I'm not, no, I'm okay. I'm really like, I would rather be single. And I got to a place where I'd radically accepted I would rather be single than have to deal. And also the men before Adriel did not do a good job proving that they would be worthy of a lifetime partner.
Yeah.
So that's where the other thing I was like, I'm not settling. I'm not like, I would rather be lonely. I think I'd rather, like, at this point, I've learned to tolerate, regulate, deal with it. I'd rather be there. I don't want to hear another person that's in a relationship that's going to tell me this nice, whatever you want for me is going to show up at my door randomly out of nowhere. And also, I also had the pressure because I met Adriel when I was 35, actually.
Yeah.
Um, and prior to that, everyone was just like, well, do you want to be a mom? Do you want to be a mom? And I had gone to the point where I was like, I've radically accepted I won't be one. I'm like, I've gone through and that's the thing, it's the phases, right? The phases of the things you worry about, the phases of the things that you think you want and you're not going to get. So like, I want this person. I'm not getting this person. I want to have a family. I'm not going to have a family. I want to have this. I'm not going to have that. And I kept just coming to a place of like, I'm just going to radically accept that I am literally going to be single. I'm going
Mhm.
to be that aunt. That's me. I'm going to be the aunt that's constantly there, that all your children are going to run away from home and come to my house because I'm that aunt. And which is actually, in a sense, been helpful too. Because now that we're also in a relationship, I'm not in that much of a rush to have a child right now either. I'm kind of like, because I had radically accepted I might not have one, it's
Mhm.
not this, I have to have one now.
I think you're also hitting on an important piece of like accepting what you need to and don't need to accept and the
Yeah.
realistic limitations of the future. And I think at times it's helpful to like kind of release yourself from certain demands. And this is like something I think probably in the coming weeks we should do an episode just on like the pressures of being like an AFAB person
Mm.
and like just thinking through that. And I think it's so, yeah, I think there are so many comments that are just made about like childbearing and those things that are just so, you know, unhelpful and ineffective, and no one's ever been like, "You know what? This random person on the street asked me if I was was ever planning to have kids, and it was actually really helpful." I'd never thought about it before. This random person gave me feedback. So yeah, I think being able to kind of talk through some of those things. But yeah, this was like another component, and it sounds like feeling kind of feeling like it took away some of the pressure on you to just kind of accept uncertainty about the future with this.
Yeah. Yeah. And it helped deal with the loneliness so much better
Yeah.
because at that point I wasn't lonely. I had myself.
Yeah.
Because I had learned to figure out how to take care of myself with all of the things and accept all the things that I wasn't going to be able to have that I wanted, uh,
Mhm.
and be okay with that. But again, also like the other thing I always tell people, like I was single for about 10 years.
Mhm.
So it wasn't like it took 10 years of me dating, having friends, for different years, having different types of friends
Yeah.
that were really good people. They were good people. They just, I wasn't, and I think the other thing that pushed me, like one of the things that stuck with me when we were learning like DBT and about borderline personality disorder, and I was learning about this, I was like, okay, so people with like borderline personality disorder could happen at any age. Like it's really something with this chronic invalidation that tends to create the symptoms of borderline personality. Like the wrong person can drive me crazy.
Yeah.
And the more actually now that I look at it, and it really is true, like there are some couples in my life that I look at and I'm like, you guys have changed, not for the better, because you're not really a good fit for each other. You're driving each other crazy. The invalidation and the way you guys are talking to each other and all of that, like it really does affect you as a person and how you grow, because the person standing next to you is influencing you in many ways. So if you're not growing for the better version of yourself, where your family and friends are like, dude, you're so much better. You're so cool. And like everyone's kind of like, take a look at that, is what I would say.
Yeah.
But that fear of like, I don't want to pick someone that's going to drive me crazy.
Mhm.
I don't want to pick someone that's going to be invalidating, that isn't going to understand me, that is going to judge me or try to change me or tell me something that I'm doing isn't the way I should be or whatever. And again, like these the guys that I was friends with before, none of them were bad people, but I don't think they were able to understand how to be supportive
Yeah.
partners that just liked me for like the first things that attracted them to me became the things that they wanted to change because they didn't want everybody else to be
Yeah.
attracted. And I was just like, yeah, no. Like,
And figuring out who's right for you is really hard when the threat of loneliness is in your back pocket. So I
yes,
think that that's really what you're talking about is like being able to stay in. Like it would be worse to be with the wrong person than to be alone. And that's a tough one. It's a tough piece to process of like of what's better, of like that's a better option. Well, I
yeah.
hope we are hitting time.
Well, we hope that this conversation enlightened you a little bit about loneliness, connection, and choosing a partner for yourself, I guess, in life.
Yeah.
Taking a look at the relationship that you're in now.
On that note,
Happy Thursday. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Off the Clock Conversations with Lily and Lauren, and we will see you next week.
sounds good.